So if you are trying to pick between Salesforce, Zoho CRM, and Monday CRM, you are already looking at three very different approaches to managing your business. And the tricky part is, they can all look similar at first, but once you start using them, the experience changes completely. So today, we will walk through how each one works. We'll talk about structure, flexibility, and daily usability, so you can decide what actually fits your workflow. Let's get started. So we'll start with Salesforce, and this is where things feel very system-driven. When you first open it, it does not try to simplify itself for you. Instead, it shows you everything as it is. You see objects, records, dashboards, and it can feel a bit heavy at first. But then once you understand the logic, you start to see why it's built this way. Because in Salesforce, everything revolves around structured data. A lead is not just a name, it's the starting point of a life cycle. Then, when you qualify it, it converts into a contact, an account, and an opportunity. And that one step, it already shows you the mindset of the platform. It wants your data to stay connected across every stage. So when you're dealing with B2B sales, where one company has multiple decision makers, multiple deals, and long cycles, this structure starts to make a lot of sense. You can open an account and you see every contact, every deal, every interaction tied to that company. It builds a full relationship map, not just a list. Then we move into the pipeline, and this is where daily work happens. The stage-based view, often in a Kanban format, gives you a visual flow of deals. You drag them across stages, but behind that simple action, there's a lot happening. Each stage can trigger automation, update probabilities, or feed into reports. And that brings us to automation, which is a major part of Salesforce. You have flows, process builders, and logic-based triggers. So you can say when a deal reaches a certain stage, assign a task, send an email, update a field, and over time, this reduces manual work in a big way. But then we need to be real here. Salesforce gives you full control, and that can become a problem if your process is not clearly defined, because you can customize fields, layouts, objects, and workflows almost endlessly. So if your team builds without a clear plan, the system can feel fragmented. Also, the learning curve is not small. Your team needs time and often some admin support to use it properly. So this is not something you just plug in and start using at full potential. It grows with you, but it expects effort. Now let's move into reporting, because this is where Salesforce becomes very powerful. You're not just looking at numbers, you're building dashboards that reflect your business health. Pipeline value, conversion rates, deal velocity, all of that can be tracked in detail. And since all data is structured properly, the insights feel reliable. So overall, Salesforce works best when your business is already complex or you expect it to become complex soon. It's less about simplicity and more about control and depth. Now, shifting into Zoho, the experience changes quite a bit. You still get a structured system, but the entry point feels more guided. It doesn't throw everything at you at once. Instead, it leads you through the core modules in a way that feels manageable. So again, you start with leads, and the conversion flow is very similar. Leads turn into contacts, accounts, and deals, but the interface makes this flow easier to follow. You don't feel like you need to learn the system before you can use it. And then Zoho expands beyond just sales tracking. This is where it becomes interesting. You move from deals into quotes, then into sales orders, and finally invoices. So the system is not stopping at closing the deal, it continues into fulfillment and revenue tracking. If your business deals with products, inventory management also comes into play. You can track stock levels, manage vendors, and even automate purchase orders when inventory hits a threshold. So now your CRM starts to connect with your operations. And in real use, this reduces the gap between teams. Sales, finance, and operations can all see the same data. So instead of asking for updates across departments, the system becomes the shared source of truth. Now let's talk about activities, because this is something that often gets overlooked. In Zoho, tasks, calls, and meetings are treated as separate entities, and at first it feels simple, but then when you look at reports, you realize why it matters. You can see how many calls were made, how many meetings were scheduled, and how tasks are being completed. So you're not just tracking deals, you're tracking effort, and this helps you understand where deals slow down. Also, automation in Zoho is quite practical. You can build workflows that assign tasks, send reminders, or update records based on conditions. It's not as deep as Salesforce in terms of customization, but it covers most real business needs without becoming too technical. Then we have Zia, the AI assistant, and this is where Zoho tries to simplify analytics. Instead of building complex reports, you can ask questions in plain language. For example, you can check how your revenue compares to a previous period, and it gives you a quick answer. Now, does it replace full analytics? Not really, but it helps teams that don't want to spend time building dashboards from scratch. So Zoho sits in that middle ground. It gives you structure, but also keeps usability in focus. And that balance is why many growing businesses stay with it for a long time. Now we move into Monday CRM, and this is where the philosophy shifts again, because Monday doesn't start with CRM logic, it starts with workspace design. So when you open it, you see boards, columns, and views. It feels closer to a project management tool than a traditional CRM, and that's intentional. You still have leads, contacts, and deals, but they live inside customizable boards. You can switch views between table, Kanban, timeline, or even charts. So instead of adapting to the system, you shape the system around your workflow. And this becomes very useful for teams that don't want rigid processes. You can build your pipeline visually, adjust columns, and track data in a way that feels natural to your team. Then you have automation, which is handled through simple rules. For example, when a deal moves to a stage, notify someone or create a task. It's not as deep as Salesforce, but it's much easier to set up. Also, sequences and email tracking bring in communication management. You can run follow-up flows, track responses, and keep everything within one system, so you reduce the need for separate tools. Now, one feature that we found very practical is the My Work view. It pulls tasks, deals, and activities into a single view based on what's assigned to you. So if your team handles multiple accounts, this helps you stay focused without jumping across boards. Then there's the dashboard, which gives you a quick overview of revenue, pipeline stages, and team performance. You can add widgets, adjust filters, and shape it to match your goals. So it works best for teams that value clarity, speed, and adaptability over deep system control. Now, if we bring all three together, the real decision comes down to how your business operates today and how you expect it to evolve. If your sales process is already complex, or you deal with layered B2B relationships, Salesforce gives you the depth and control to manage that, but you need the patience to set it up properly. If you're scaling and you want a system that connects sales with operations without becoming too technical, Zoho CRM gives you that balance. It supports growth without forcing heavy complexity too early. And if your team wants a clean, visual system that's easy to adapt and quick to use, Monday CRM fits naturally. It reduces friction in daily work and keeps everyone aligned. So instead of asking which one is better, we usually frame it like this: how much structure do you need and how much flexibility do you want? Because each of these tools answers that question in a different way. And once you see that clearly, the choice becomes less confusing and much more practical. That was all. Thanks for watching. If you found it helpful, give it a like and subscribe for more videos. And don't forget to share your experience in the comments.